Behold, the pantheon of the pixelated agora, the amphitheater wherein the chariots of live-streamed dramaturgy perpetually trample over the cadavers of financial prudence and ideological coherence.
I've never spoken about drama in 5 years on this stream. But just know that OTK hears you guys. I hear you guys. Changes have to happen if it's going to continue to exist as a org. I think a lot of people forget that an org is more than just the faces on streams. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of people's livelihoods, and at Christmas we had to lay a ton of people off, and that sucked. Especially for me, I know those people, I love those people, and I always want to do what I can to make sure they can hang on to their livelihoods. And so just know that we're trying to make changes to make it a better org, and you'll probably hear more about that in the future, the immediate future. And if we can't make it a better place, if we can't make it a happier, healthier place, then I'll have to reevaluate where I stand. But that's all I'm going to say about that, because I'm not trying to farm this. I don't even want to talk about it. I don't.
And at the locus of this digital discord, the organizational Goliath known as One True King, or as it now stands, One True Conflagration, finds itself hemorrhaging not merely capital, not merely corporate patronage, but the very sinew of its structural integrity as it succumbs to the insidious rot that is ideological misalignment. Within this tempest, our protagonist, the affable yet circumlocutory Neff, stands upon the precipice of the unutterable, ensnared within the infernal dialectic of organizational loyalty and moral exigency. He does not name the specter that looms over the embattled collective, but his words, pregnant with inference, drip with the tacit acknowledgement of a foundational schism. He speaks of necessary reformations, of tectonic restructuring, of the gossamer thin balance between professional viability and the inexorable downward spiral toward cultural irrelevance. And yet, the nucleus of this calamity remains an unspoken truth, an unarticulated malignancy that, though left unnamed, metastasizes within the very marrow of the organization. Let us not engage in the plebeian courtesies of equivocation, nor in the ornamental frivolities of diplomatic ambiguity. It is evident that the inciting agent of this existential tremor within OTK is none other than the ideological corrosion engendered by the reactionary inclinations of one of its foundational architects. The behemoth once envisioned as a digital utopia, a commercialized agora of content-driven entrepreneurship, now teeters precariously upon the precipice of financial ruin, besieged by the spectral tendrils of ideological toxicity. The exodus of sponsorship, that necrotic hemorrhage of corporate goodwill, is no mere coincidence. It is the inevitable consequence of the caustic radiation emitted by reactionary rhetoric, an atavistic regression into the socio-political malaise that repels the stabilizing hand of institutional patronage. The neoliberal benefactors of cyberspatial industry are not in the business of underwriting reputational risk. They are, at their core, profit-maximizing pragmatists who, when faced with the deleterious specter of reactionary affiliations, shall sever their financial umbilical cord with neither sentimentality nor hesitation. And thus, the edifice of OTK, once bolstered by the alms of corporate benevolence, finds itself languishing within the fiscal abyss, its viability compromised by the very ideological fissures that now carve chasms into its foundational bedrock. What remains is a house divided, a collective hemorrhaging resources and personnel alike, its lifeblood siphoned away by the twin specters of financial attrition and cultural discordance. In this crucible of economic implosion and ideological fragmentation, Neff emerges as a reluctant Cassandra, one who perceives the encroaching apocalypse, yet remains ensnared within the treacherous calculus of self-preservation. His lamentations are that of a man who has borne witness to the immolation of an enterprise he holds dear, yet whose positionality within the internal hierarchy necessitates a diplomatic obfuscation of unutterable realities. He speaks of an organization composed of livelihoods, of individuals who have tethered their financial fates to the perpetuation of OTK's commercial viability. He does not engage in the performative indulgence of righteous indignation, nor in the platitudinous moralizing of the reactionary opposition. Instead, he is a man entrenched within the pragmatic agonies of an industry wherein ideological purity is an unaffordable luxury, wherein professional survival is contingent upon one's ability to navigate the minefield of corporate discretion. Yet, his words reek of an impending schism, of an unspoken ultimatum that shall, in due course, necessitate the crucible of decision. For an entity whose financial arteries are severed by the twin blades of reputational decay and corporate desertion shall, if it seeks longevity, be compelled to excise the malignancies that have precipitated its demise. Should the requisite purgation fail to materialize, should the nucleus of discordance remain unchallenged, then it shall not be Neff who abandons OTK, but rather OTK that is abandoned by the economic realities of an industry that brooks no ideological liabilities. To regard this debacle as an insular episode within the microcosm of livestream dramaturgy is to engage in an exercise of naive reductionism. For the tribulations of OTK are but a singular manifestation of a grander meta-narrative, a dialectical clash between the anachronistic specters of reactionary regressivism and the inexorable march of corporate-aligned progressivism. It is an immutable truth that the digital coliseum is no longer an ideologically neutral entity, but rather an amphitheater wherein the fates of content creators are inextricably entwined with the capricious whims of market sensibilities. And in this unforgiving ecosystem, the currency of public perception is as volatile as it is indispensable. To engage in ideological posturing that diverges from the sanitizing currents of corporate palatability is to court financial ostracization, to wield one's own rhetorical excesses as the harbinger of fiscal annihilation. The reactionary contingent, ensnared within the delusions of ideological martyrdom, shall undoubtedly bemoan the mercenary pragmatism of sponsors who abandon ship at the mere whiff of political toxicity. But this lamentation, while emotionally satisfying to the besieged reactionary, is one that ultimately exists in defiance of the immutable axioms of capitalistic self-preservation. The corporate overlords of the streaming industrial complex possess neither the sentimental indulgence of ideological warriors nor the impetuous foolhardiness of philosophical purists. Their allegiance is singular, their deity unambiguous. It is the god of profit, the singular force to which all strategic calculations are rendered subservient. And thus, an organization that aligns itself with the ideological currents that jeopardize this singular devotion shall, without exception, be discarded into the abyss of fiscal irrelevance. The hour of reckoning draws nigh, and the crossroads of fate loom ominously before the fractured bastion of OTK. The question is no longer whether reform shall be undertaken, but whether such reform shall be embraced voluntarily or imposed through the inexorable entropy of economic irrelevance. Neff, in his veiled lamentation, has signposted the inevitability of transformation. The gears of change have already been set into motion, and the forces of economic Darwinism shall demand their due. Should the organization choose the path of excision, should it sever the ideological tumor that festers within its innards, then it may yet salvage its trajectory. But should it remain shackled to the inertia of ideological recalcitrance, should it refuse to confront the inexorable reality that its current path is one of terminal decline, then it shall not be an exodus of personnel that heralds its demise. The digital pantheon is unforgiving to those who do not evolve. And as the corporate lifeblood of OTK continues to hemorrhage, the time for ideological hedging is over. The reckoning has come. Choose wisely.